Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
And now we'll clear this room for the real grandchild. While Francisca was in the maternity hospital, her husband and mother-in-law took her daughter's belongings from a previous marriage and threw them in the trash. In the morning, they were in for a surprise. Francisca remembered the gray walls of the orphanage as vividly as if she had left them yesterday, not 15 years ago. That grayness soaked into your skin, your hair, your thoughts. It remained unchanged no matter the weather or the mood of the caregivers. Only sometimes, when the sun peeked through the faded daisy curtains, did it create the illusion of warmth. At 16, many girls dreamed of fashionable clothes, makeup, and freedom. Francisca Cabanes, case number 1194, dreamed of something else. Under the blanket in the dormitory of 12 beds, she drew in a worn sketchbook. Not dresses or jewelry, but a house, a simple wooden house with a porch, a garden, and a bench. On the porch stood figures, a mother, a father, children. Sometimes she added a dog or a cat. Her caregiver, Luz Manso, once saw her drawings. "Oh, Francisca," she sighed, handing back the sketchbook. "God willing, your dream will come true." Luz, a thin woman with constantly cracked fingers, was the only one who sometimes hugged the children. Not for good behavior, not for show, just when she saw despair in their eyes. Those moments were rare. One pair of hands for 30 kids. But Francisca remembered that warmth. It became her measure of what a real family should feel like. The small government-issued one-room apartment she received after aging out of the orphanage became Francisca's first space of her own. She painted the walls pale yellow, choosing the warmest paint she could find. She hung floral wallpaper, bought dishes at flea markets, not just the cheapest ones, but those that felt homey. She also fell in love with warmth. Tomas worked as a mechanic across the street. Francisca often saw him through her window, tall, with hands perpetually stained in engine oil. Sometimes he would sit on a crate and smoke, looking at the sky. In those moments, his face seemed thoughtful, almost sad. They met when her old Opel, bought with her first paycheck as a shop assistant, refused to start. Tomas spent 3 hours fixing it and refused payment. "Just buy me a coffee sometime," he said with a smile, wiping his hands with a rag. Coffee turned into dinner, dinner into a walk until sunrise. For the first time, Francisca told someone about the orphanage, her drawings, her dream. Tomas listened silently, occasionally squeezing her hand. "I have a small house in the suburbs," he said. "It was my grandfather's. I've been slowly fixing it up. It has a porch and a garden plot." 6 months later, she moved in with him, and 3 months after that, they got married quietly, no big ceremony. Just them and 2 witnesses, his friend Cristiano and her orphanage friend Maria. They drank champagne on the porch of the house that was now theirs. Tomas gave her a silver bracelet with a tiny house charm. "Now you'll always have a home," he said. "With me." When Francisca got pregnant, they painted the future nursery sky blue together. Tomas insisted it would be a girl, and he was right. Wana was born weighing 3,200 grams, with light fuzz on her head and eyes that promised to be as blue as her father's. 3 years of perfect happiness followed. Tomas left early for the garage, came home for dinner. Wana grew up giggling and curious. Francisca worked from home as a bookkeeper after taking some courses. In the evenings they sat on the porch, sipping tea. Tomas told funny stories from the garage. Wana chased butterflies down the paths. Stories like this don't happen, Francisca told herself later, when 2 policemen knocked on her door at 5 a.m. When her world shattered from one sentence, "Your husband died in a car accident." When she stood at the coffin, holding Wana, who kept asking, "When will Daddy wake up?" The dream home became oppressive in its emptiness. Every corner reminded her of Tomas. She sold it 6 months later. She couldn't take it anymore. Moved back into her old city apartment. It was easier to breathe there, fewer ghosts, less phantom pain. Wana turned 4 when Francisca met Luis. She was picking her up from daycare, rushing to finish a report for a client. Luis, there to pick up his nephew from the same group, helped zip Wana's jacket with her little frozen fingers. Always a challenge, he smiled. My nephew can't do it by himself either. My daddy helped me, Wana said seriously. But he's in heaven now. Francisca froze, expecting awkward silence, but Luis knelt in front of Wana. So now he's your guardian angel, he said gently. That's a very important job. And while he's busy, I can help with the zipper. They didn't start dating right away. First came casual daycare chats, then coffee across the street while the kids played. A walk in the park, a trip to the zoo. Luis turned out to be a remote programmer for an American company. Calm, a bit shy, with a soft smile and a habit of running his fingers through his sandy blonde hair when nervous. He and Wana developed a special bond. He didn't try to replace her father or force his way in. He was just there, helping with Lego, reading stories, teaching her to fly a kite. Wana slowly opened up, and one day, during a walk, she took his hand. Francisca felt something inside her stretch toward the sun. You know, Luis said one evening in the kitchen after Wana had gone to bed. You're amazing. Most people in your place would have become bitter. I can't afford to, she said simply. Wana only has me. If I grow bitter, what happens to her? Luis gently laid his hand over hers. I love you, he said softly. Both of you. And if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of your family. They married a year later. Another quiet ceremony, much like with Tomas, but different. 6-year-old Wana proudly carried the rings on a small pillow. Also present was Catalina, Luis's mother, dressed in beige with pursed lips. Congratulations, she said dryly after the ceremony. Though I had hoped Luis would find a girl without baggage. Francisca froze, but Luis immediately put his arm around her. Mom, please. Wana is a wonderful child, and Francisca is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Catalina pursed her lips even tighter but said nothing. Francisca chalked it up to a mother's concern. All mothers want the best for their sons, and she, a young widow with a child, probably didn't fit the image of the perfect bride. She'll grow to love Wana, Francisca thought. How could anyone not love this bright, kind soul? The three of them lived in Francisca's one-room apartment. It was tight, but cozy. Luis worked in a corner behind a screen. Wana played with dolls or drew. Francisca handled bookkeeping for clients. In the evenings, after putting Wana to bed, she and Luis whispered in the kitchen, dreaming of a bigger place, a second child, trips to the sea. When the test showed 2 lines, both of them cried with happiness. They immediately told Wana she'd have a baby brother or sister. She jumped around clapping. We'll put 2 beds in the kids' room, right? She asked. And my toys will be his toys too. The pregnancy started hard. Francisca suffered from nausea and weakness. Luis took a day off for the first ultrasound. They went together. The tiny heartbeat flickered on screen, but the doctor looked concerned. The uterus is hypertonic, she said with a frown. You need to be very careful. No stress, no strain. I'll prescribe medicine, but if it gets worse, go straight to the hospital. Luis took over all the housework, cooked, cleaned, took Wana to daycare, while still juggling his demanding job and late-night video calls. I could come help, Catalina offered during a Sunday visit. My grandson needs a healthy mother. Francisca noted my grandson but said nothing. She didn't yet know the baby's gender. The second ultrasound was still ahead, but her mother-in-law seemed sure. Wana is your granddaughter too, Luis said gently. Of course, Catalina waved dismissively. I remember. But this is my son's first biological child, especially if it's a boy. A true heir, so to speak. She laughed, but it sounded strained. The second ultrasound confirmed it, a boy. When Luis told his mother, she beamed. I told you. A mother's heart just knows. A boy, an heir, a real grandchild. This phrase kept repeating more and more often. My real grandson will need more space when my real grandson is born. Each time, Wana would grow quieter, as if shrinking inward. Francisca tried talking to Luis, but he brushed her off. It's just a figure of speech. Mom means no harm. She's old-fashioned. To her, it's important that there's a child from me, her son. You know how she raised me alone. I'm everything to her. In the 3rd month of pregnancy, Francisca began having problems. She woke up with a sharp pain in her lower abdomen and found bloodstains on the sheet. Luis called an ambulance. The doctors diagnosed a threat of miscarriage. We're admitting you to the hospital, the doctor said. Rest and treatment are necessary to preserve the pregnancy. Without that, the risk of losing the baby is high. Francisca cried in the ambulance. Not from the pain, but from fear for the tiny life inside her. And also because of the thought of Wana. Who would stay with her while her mom was in the hospital? I'll ask my mom to stay with us, Luis said when they were briefly alone in the hospital room. She'll watch Wana while I'm at work. Luis, I don't know, Francisca began, but he interrupted. Everything will be fine. Mom can handle it, and I'll stop by every day. Right now, your only job is to keep our son safe. There was so much anxiety and hope in his eyes that Francisca couldn't bring herself to object. Besides, there wasn't much choice. She had no friends who could take care of someone else's child, and the elderly neighbor next door was not an option. Francisca placed a hand on her stomach, where a small bump was just starting to show. I have to carry you to term, baby. I must. For you and for Wana. She needs a little brother so much. And as if in response, she felt the first faint fluttering inside, like butterfly wings brushing the walls of her womb. The shared room for 4 in the obstetrics ward became a kind of cage for Francisca. White walls, squeaky beds, the smell of medicine and bleach. Roommates came and went, some discharged, others transferred to labor. Francisca stayed. Daytime IVs, pills at night. The monotonous hospital meals. Each morning, a young, tired-eyed doctor would examine her, frowning at the test results. Uterine tone is still elevated, and your hemoglobin's too low. You'll have to stay a bit longer. Outside, the weather shifted, late spring turned into summer. Francisca spent hours watching the hospital courtyard, where lilacs bloomed and poplar fluff danced in the air. Women in hospital robes came out to smoke or sit on benches. Walks like that were forbidden for her. Most of the day, she clutched her phone. Luis called twice a day, morning and evening, with brief reports. Everything's fine. Wana's going to kindergarten, Mom's helping. His calls grew more rushed, like he was always talking on the move. Let me talk to Wana, Francisca asked every evening. She's busy right now, Luis would often reply. Mom's bathing her, or she's already asleep. When Francisca did manage to talk to her daughter, her heart ached. Wana's cheerful little voice sounded duller, more muted. She gave short answers, as if afraid to speak. How are you, sweetheart? Anything interesting? I'm fine, Mom. Nothing much. And are you getting along with Grandma? A pause. Too long a pause for a 6-year-old. Yeah, it's fine. Sometimes Francisca would hear her mother-in-law's voice in the background. The words were unclear, but the tone was sharp, commanding. And Wana's voice would always go quiet afterward. Mama, can I take Fluffy to kindergarten? Wana asked once. They called her old plush bunny Fluffy. Tomas had given it to her before he died. A scruffy toy with one ear sewn back on, it was Wana's treasure. She took it to bed, whispered secrets to it, treated it when she was sick. Of course, sweetheart. He's your bunny. Grandma won't let me, Wana said quietly. She says he's dirty, and the other kids will catch something from me. Fluffy is clean. I washed him before I left, Francisca began, and then heard her mother-in-law's sharp voice in the background. Who are you talking to? Dinner's getting cold. The call ended. When Francisca tried to call back, Luis's phone was off. She couldn't stop thinking about the bunny. She sent Luis a long message asking him to talk to his mother and explain how important that toy was to Wana. The reply came 2 hours later. "Don't worry, I'll handle it. Mom's just worried about hygiene. She's been a neat freak since childhood. Love you, get well soon." By the end of the second week in the hospital, Francisca finally managed to speak with Wana alone. Luis had told her in the morning that he'd bring their daughter for a visit. "Mom's going shopping, we'll swing by for half an hour," he said. "Just don't be upset, Wana caught a little cold." Francisca counted the minutes until the visit. When Luis appeared at the door with their daughter, she barely held back tears. Wana had lost weight, dark shadows lingered under her eyes. But worst was her expression, lifeless, as if someone had turned off the light inside her. "My sunshine," Francisca whispered, hugging her daughter. Wana clung to her tightly, buried her face in her mother's neck, and froze. She didn't cry, she just breathed fast and shallow. "It's been almost 3 weeks," Luis said cheerfully. "Doctors say you might be discharged soon?" "Maybe in a week, if my labs improve," Francisca answered, not letting go of her daughter. "Luis, could you go to the cafeteria? Buy Wana some juice and a bun?" She handed him some money. Luis nodded and left. Only then did Francisca gently pull her daughter back and look into her eyes. "Wana, what's going on? Tell me the truth." Wana glanced at the door, as if afraid Luis might hear. "Grandma says I have to get used to it," she whispered. "Because when the baby comes, you won't have time for me. She says you and Daddy will be busy with the real baby and that I shouldn't bother you because I might make you lose the baby." Francisca felt a coldness spread inside her. "That's not true, sweetheart. Not at all. You're my real, beloved child. And the baby is real and loved too. There's room in Mommy's heart for both of you." Wana sniffled. "And Grandma took me out of my room. She put a folding bed in the hallway. She said my room is going to be the nursery now." "What?" Francisca felt rage tightening in her chest. "And my toys." Wana fell silent, biting her lip. "What about your toys?" "Grandma says they're old and dirty. She throws them away. Every day she throws something away." At that moment, Luis returned. Wana fell silent immediately and tensed up. "Apple juice, right?" he smiled, not noticing the tension. "And a cinnamon bun, just how you like it." Francisca looked at her husband and didn't recognize him. Could he really not see? Not understand what was happening? "Luis, I need to talk to you." "Alone," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "Wana, sweetheart, sit on my bed for a while and look at the magazine." They moved to the far corner of the ward. Fortunately, the other women had scattered, some to procedures, some to the lounge with the TV. "What's going on with Wana's things?" Francisca asked directly. "Why is she sleeping in the hallway?" Luis looked uneasy, running his fingers through his hair. "Well, Mom decided to start preparing the nursery. She's so happy about the future grandson. And yeah, maybe she went a bit overboard with the cleaning, but she's really concerned about germs and all that. You know how older people are. Luis, your mother is 58. She's not some senile old woman. She's a perfectly sane adult who is deliberately driving my daughter out of her own home and throwing away her things. Do you even realize what's happening?" "Francisca, calm down," Luis said nervously, glancing at their daughter. "You can't get stressed. I promise I'll sort it all out and talk to Mom. She's got this thing about cleanliness. And she really wants a grandson. Who will be real, unlike Wana," Francisca said through clenched teeth. "Do you even hear what she's saying?" Luis sighed. "Mom sometimes says things the wrong way. Don't pay attention to it. I'll talk to her, I promise, and I'll move Wana back to her room. But right now, you really need to focus on your health and the baby." Francisca wanted to scream, to shake him by the shoulders, but then she looked at Wana, sitting on the bed, so small, so fragile, flipping through a magazine, stealing anxious glances at the adults. "Fine," she said quietly. "I'm counting on you, Luis. But know this, if your mother doesn't stop, I'll find a way to stop this madness. Even from here." They returned to Wana, and for the rest of the visit, Francisca tried to smile, told funny stories from hospital life, showed ultrasound pictures where you could already see the baby's tiny profile. She explained she'd be home soon, and everything would be okay. When it was time to say goodbye, Wana clung to her hand. "I don't want to leave," she whispered. "Can I stay with you?" "You can't, princess," Luis said gently. "Children aren't allowed in the hospital, but Mommy will be back soon. I promise." He literally pulled Wana away from the bed. She didn't cry or scream, just looked at Francisca with wide, silent eyes until the door closed behind them. That night, Francisca couldn't sleep. For the first time during her hospital stay, she seriously considered running away. To hell with the doctor's orders. She would lie down at home, stay still, but she'd be next to her daughter. By morning, she had a plan. She would call her brother. Pablo, whom she had found through social media 5 years ago, lived in a nearby city. They didn't see each other often. He came by every few months with his wife and kids, but he always said, "Sis, if anything happens, call me. I'll be there." While Francisca was in the hospital, he'd visited twice, bringing homemade pies, juice, and took pictures to show his family. "You've got an aunt who's about to give you a little brother," he'd joke as he snapped photos. But before calling him, Francisca decided to give Luis one last chance. She called him at work, knowing his mother wouldn't hear. "Luis, I want Wana back in her room tonight. And your mother must stop throwing away her things. I'm not joking. If I find out nothing's changed, I will raise hell." Okay, he agreed quickly. "I'll fix everything today. And maybe Mom should go back to her apartment? I can manage Wana on my own." "Great idea," Francisca replied dryly. That evening, Luis reported that he'd done as asked. "Wana's back in her room. Mom admitted she went too far. She apologizes," he said. "Really, Francisca, she just has a weird way of showing care for her grandchild." Francisca wanted to believe him. Really wanted to. When she spoke with Wana, her daughter confirmed it. She was back in her room, her bed was there, and her voice sounded a bit stronger, a bit livelier. But 2 days later, Francisca called during Luis's working hours. Catalina answered. "Ah, daughter-in-law?" Her tone was tinged with irritation. "How's your health? Taking care of my grandson? Where's Wana?" Francisca asked, ignoring the question. "At kindergarten, where else?" Catalina grumbled. "Luis will pick her up tonight." "Why not you? Aren't you living there to help?" "My blood pressure's high," the older woman snapped. "And anyway, I didn't sign up to drag someone else's kid around. Besides, the girl's old enough to go by herself." "She's 6, Francisca said, outraged. "How can she go alone?" "In my day, 6-year-olds were already helping around the house," Catalina retorted. "You people spoil your kids too much." A doorbell rang in the background. "Gotta go," she said. "The furniture's here." "What furniture?" Francisca asked, stunned. "For the nursery, of course. I ordered a new set, crib, changing table, wardrobe. All white with blue trim, for my grandson." The call ended. Francisca stared at her phone for several seconds, then called Luis. His phone was off. That evening, they had a short but tense conversation. "What the hell is this furniture, Luis? You let her buy a nursery set when we already have everything, and didn't even tell me?" "Francisca, it's her gift," Luis said tiredly. "She wants to do something for her grandson. So what if she didn't ask? At least we don't have to spend money." "What happened to Wana's furniture? Her crib, her dresser?" Luis hesitated. Mom said it was all old. That a new baby needs new things. And she's kind of right. That crib's 7 years old. It creaks. Where's Wana's furniture? Francisca asked, enunciating every word. Luis paused. Mom called movers. They took it all to the dump. Francisca felt nausea rising to her throat. She covered her mouth, took deep breaths. And Wana's toys? Her books? Some of that too. Mom said it was all dusty, full of germs. Fluffy? Francisca whispered. Wana's bunny? Silence. Louder than any answer. I'll kill your mother, Francisca whispered. I swear to God, I'll kill her with my own hands. Francisca, Luis said, panicking. You can't get upset. Think about the baby. I am thinking about him. And about Wana. Both of them deserve a better father than you. She hung up, then for the first time in 3 weeks, broke down in loud, hopeless sobs, burying her face in the pillows so as not to frighten the other women. In the morning, the doctor visited. After listening to the baby's heartbeat, she smiled. Good news, your uterine tone has decreased significantly. I think we can discharge you in 3 to 4 days. But only if there's no stress or exertion at home. Francisca smiled weakly. Thank you, doctor. I'll be very careful with my baby. Once the doctor left, Francisca picked up the phone. But instead of calling Luis, she found her brother's number in her contacts. Pablo, it's me. I need your help. The next day, Francisca was discharged and sent home. Luis arrived to pick her up in a taxi. The car weaved through city streets, carrying Francisca farther and farther from the hospital. Luis sat beside her, nervously tapping his fingers on his knee. He tried to start a conversation a few times, but Francisca responded briefly, staring out the window. Familiar neighborhoods, stores, and parks passed by. The spring city buzzed with life. People hurried about their business, children returned from school, elderly women sat chatting on benches. On the stairway landing, they were met by their neighbor Rafaela, a heavy-set woman with shortness of breath and an ever-curious gaze behind thick glasses. Oh, Francisca, she exclaimed, throwing up her hands. You've been discharged? Thank God. Because, well, she hesitated, casting a wary glance at Luis. Your mother-in-law caused quite the scene. A truck came, they were hauling things out. I thought you were moving. Don't pay it any mind, Luis interjected quickly. Mom just decided to do some remodeling. We're getting ready for the baby. Remodeling? The neighbor repeated skeptically. Then why were the dumpsters in the yard full of children's things? I saw toys, books, even a crib. Practically new. It was a misunderstanding, Luis said, gripping Francisca's arm. We have to go, excuse us. The key turned in the lock with a familiar creak. Francisca stepped inside and froze. Their small hallway was unrecognizable. Gone was the coat rack for Wana's jackets and overalls. The hooks for bags, the little shoe shelf, vanished. In their place stood a bulky cabinet with a mirror and a tall coat stand made of dark wood. On the hooks hung Catalina's trench and Luis's coat. What? Francisca began, then cut herself off. Against the wall in the hallway stood a folding cot, narrow, with a faded blue mattress. Beside it, a small nightstand neatly stacked with children's clothes. Sitting on the cot, legs dangling in pom-pom socks, was Wana. She jumped up when she saw her mother but didn't run into her arms like she usually did. She just stood there, watching cautiously from under her brow. Mama, she said uncertainly, are you back for good? Francisca crossed the hallway in 2 steps, knelt, and embraced her tightly. Wana smelled like apple shampoo and oddly, cinnamon. Her hands were dry, the skin cracked. Have you been washing with something? Francisca asked, pulling back. Wana nodded. Grandma makes me wash my hands all the time with laundry soap. She says it kills all the germs. Francisca slowly stood, turning to Luis. He looked embarrassed, but not guilty. More annoyed than anything. I told Mom it was too much, but she insisted. She's really got this thing about cleanliness. And you promised to stay calm. Remember the baby? Where's her bed? Francisca interrupted. I told you, Mom ordered new furniture for the baby. The nursery's too small for 2 full beds. The cot's just temporary. We'll figure something out. Where are my toys, Mama? Wana asked quietly. Grandma threw everything away. Said they were dirty. Francisca clenched her jaw until her teeth hurt. And Fluffy, she asked, though she already knew. He was the first, Wana whispered. I cried, but Grandma said he was the most infected one because he was old. At that moment, Catalina glided out of the kitchen. She wore an apron over an expensive dark blue dress, her hair perfectly styled. She looked a bit thinner, but her tight-lipped mouth and sharp gaze hadn't changed. Well, daughter-in-law. You're back, she said without a trace of warmth. Just in time. I made dinner. You need rest, calm, proper nutrition. Hospitals never feed people right, but here, you'll have everything. And the first condition, my daughter sleeps on a cot in the hallway. Francisca asked softly. Her things are in the trash? Her favorite toy, where is it? Which dumpster? Catalina gave her a scorching look. Don't be dramatic. That mangy rabbit was a germ nest. Probably full of dust mites. Do you know how many allergies those cause? My grandson could be at risk. We can't take chances. Francisca took a step forward. Her vision darkened with rage. Stop. Luis grabbed her arm. Please calm down. Mom just meant well. Well? Francisca yanked her arm away. While I was in the hospital, you two destroyed my daughter's world. Threw away her things. Took her room. Erased her memories of her father. And you keep saying it was for the best? You're overreacting, Catalina scoffed. So what, stuff? She'll have new things. I already picked out a dress and shoes. And the room, this is just practical. The baby should sleep with the parents for at least the first year. Later, when he's older, you'll move to a bigger apartment and everyone will have their space. And what about her dresser? Her bookshelf? Her desk she used for schoolwork? Francisca swept her arm toward the hallway. Where is all that? Catalina shrugged. The dump, of course. Those old things took up too much space in. She didn't finish. Francisca threw open the door to what used to be Wana's room. It was completely transformed. The cheerful yellow walls were now a pale blue. In the corner stood a brand new crib with a canopy. A changing table nearby. A huge wardrobe covered an entire wall. On the shelves, folded blankets, baby clothes, boxed toys. Not a trace remained of Wana's room. No drawings on the walls, no pencil marks charting her height, no posters of her favorite cartoons. Nothing. Beautiful, isn't it? Catalina said proudly, peering over Francisca's shoulder. I picked only the best for my grandson. The crib is made from eco-friendly wood. The bedding is premium cotton. You're a psychopath, Francisca whispered. A sick, spiteful psychopath. Catalina gasped, offended. How dare you? I did all this for the good of the family. For the good of my grandson. And you're just an ungrateful orphan, lucky to be part of a decent family. I tried to accept you. Tried to accept that you had a child from someone else. I didn't even object when you dragged that girl into my son's life. But you. Francisca turned to Luis. Do you hear this? Do you hear what she's saying? And you let her do all this? Let her torment my daughter. Luis looked lost. He kept glancing from his mother to his wife and back. She just wanted to help. Prepare everything for the baby, he said weakly. Oh, Luis, don't apologize, Catalina cut in. You did the right thing. I'm your mother. I've always wanted the best for you. And this one. Shut up. Wana suddenly shouted, stepping forward. Shut up. You're mean. You said Daddy would stop loving me because of the baby. That I don't matter. That I'd be sent to an orphanage. Francisca froze. She slowly knelt down beside her daughter. What did she say to you? She asked quietly. Wana sobbed. She said you and Daddy would love the baby more. Because he's real. And I'm not. That soon there won't be a place for me in this family. That I'll be sent away, like you were. Francisca pulled her into a tight hug, held her close, then looked up at Luis. He stood pale, stunned. Mom, he finally said. Did you really say that to her? Luis, don't believe her, Catalina said quickly. She's making it up. She's just jealous. It's normal. Kids from first marriages always get jealous of newborns. I was just preparing her a little. Preparing her? Luis repeated. By scaring her with an orphanage? Don't be so dramatic, his mother grimaced. I simply explained how life works, that biological children are always more important than strays. Francisca felt a chill spread through her chest. Maybe she could have forgiven the discarded things. After all, they were just objects, easily replaced. But this poison, this cruelty directed at a 6-year-old child, was something else entirely. Get out of my house, she said quietly, straightening up. Right now. What? Catalina raised her chin. How dare you? This is my son's home. I have more right to be here than you. No, Mom, Luis said, unexpectedly firm. This is Francisca's apartment. She received it from the state as an orphan. I'm just registered here. Catalina's face twisted. Something dark and malicious flickered in her eyes. So that's how it is, she hissed. I mean nothing to you? Your own mother, who raised you, who sat by your bedside when you were sick. And her? This upstart means more to you than I do? Don't do this, Mom, Luis shook his head. I love you. You're my mother, but what you did, what you said to Wana, that's wrong. You need to leave. I'm not going anywhere. Catalina shrieked. You have to choose, it's me or her and her little brat. Silence fell over the room. Wana clung to her mother, trembling. Francisca covered her daughter's ears. Luis slowly approached his mother. His face was pale, 2 red patches burning on his cheeks. Pack your things, Mom, he said softly. And don't you ever talk about my stepdaughter like that again. Traitor. Catalina spat. I did everything for you. Everything. And you choose her? She's bewitched you, put a spell on you. You're not even yourself when you're with her. No, it's you who's lost control, Luis said coldly. Get out. Now. I'll drive you home. I'm not going anywhere with you. Catalina stormed around the apartment, grabbing her things. I'll go on my own. And you'll regret this. Oh, you'll regret it so much. She shoved clothes, cosmetics, odds and ends into her bag. Her hands and lips were trembling. And you can choke on that nursery, she shouted on her way out. I renounce it all. All of it. The door slammed. Silence followed, broken only by Wana's quiet sobs. Francisca stroked her daughter's head, whispering softly to soothe her. Luis stood in the middle of the room, staring at the door. I didn't know she said those things to Wana, he said finally. I swear, I didn't know. Francisca looked at him with a long, evaluating gaze. But you saw the cot in the hallway, she said. You saw the things being thrown out. You saw the nursery being set up. And you let it happen. Luis ran his fingers through his hair. I honestly thought it was temporary, that it was for the baby's benefit. That Mom was just overreacting about the pregnancy, trying to ensure the best for her grandchild. The best? Francisca let out a bitter laugh. At the cost of my daughter's mental health? Luis dropped his head. I'm guilty, he said quietly. I should have stopped her from the beginning, but she's my mother. I'm used to trusting her judgment. She always seemed to know what was best. Francisca looked at her husband, feeling something warm inside her slowly die. She still loved him, maybe. But could she ever trust him again? Could she entrust him with her daughter's well-being? Her unborn sons? We have to fix this, Luis said. Tonight we'll give Wana her room back. We'll buy a new bed, new toys, everything she needs. And what about Fluffy? Wana suddenly spoke up. Daddy's bunny? Luis's lips trembled. No, sweetheart. We can't get Fluffy back. But we can find a new bunny or a new toy, one that'll be just as special. Wana pulled away from her mother and raised her tear-streaked face. I don't want a new toy, she said, unusually calm for a 6-year-old. Fluffy was from my real dad. Luis looked like he'd been slapped. He flinched and turned even paler. Francisca said nothing. Wana had every right to her feelings, her pain. At that moment, the doorbell rang. 3 short rings, the signal. Francisca flinched. Who is it? Luis asked warily. My brother, Francisca replied, walking toward the door. Pablo? Why? Why did you call him? Luis stammered. Because I was afraid of what I'd find when I came home, she said simply. And she had been right. She opened the door. Pablo was standing on the threshold, tall, broad-shouldered, shaved temples, eyes sharp. Behind him, 2 friends just as solid, their expressions unreadable. Hey, sis, Pablo smiled. Everything okay? Francisca shook her head. No. Not at all. Pablo looked around the hallway, spotted the cot, pressed his lips together. Got it, he said. Where'd that bitch go? She left, Francisca replied shortly. On her own? Shame, Pablo stepped inside. His friends followed. The old lady got lucky. But your man didn't. Listen, Luis stepped forward, hands raised. I get it. I know I messed up. But we can fix this. We don't need violence. Violence? Pablo raised his eyebrows. Who said anything about violence? I just want to understand how a man lets his mommy torment a little girl. Do you have a conscience? I didn't know, Luis began. You knew, Pablo cut him off. You knew everything. You just didn't have the guts. It was easier to pretend nothing was happening, to tell yourself mommy knows best. But let me tell you, a real man never lets anyone hurt a child. Not a mother, not a boss, no one. He turned to Francisca. What now, sis? You decide. It's your home. Your family. Francisca looked long at Luis. His pale face, confused eyes, slumped shoulders. She had truly loved him for his kindness, his calm, his reliability. But where had all that been when her daughter was suffering? I want him gone, she said quietly. For good. Luis flinched. Francisca, please, I'll make it right. I swear. No, she shook her head. You can't fix what's already been done. You can't bring back Fluffy. You can't erase what your mother said to Wana. And you can't restore trust once it's broken. I didn't betray you. You did, Francisca said wearily. Every time you looked away from what your mother was doing. Every time you let her poison my daughter's life. Every time you failed to protect us. She turned to her brother. Pablo, see him out. Let him pack his things and go. And the baby? Luis asked desperately. My son? That's no longer your concern, Pablo said sharply. He'll grow up to be a good man. Not a spineless coward who lets children be abused. He nodded to his friends. They took Luis by the arms and led him toward the bedroom. No hitting, Francisca warned. Wana's had enough trauma already. Don't worry, Pablo reassured. No one's going to get their hands dirty here. Let him pack his things and go. Francisca crouched down in front of Wana. Let's go to the kitchen, sweetheart. We'll put the kettle on and get something to eat. You must be hungry. Wana nodded, wiping her tears with her fist. Grandma made some kind of soup with celery. I don't like celery. I know, Francisca smiled. We'll make sandwiches with your favorite ham and some chocolate milk. How does that sound? Wana nodded again, a little more cheerfully. They headed into the kitchen, leaving the men to handle the rest in the hallway. The kitchen had changed too. New pots, pans, some appliances. A vase of artificial flowers sat on the table, flowers Francisca had always hated. All right, let's see, she said, opening the fridge. Whoa, lots of eggs. Want an omelet? With tomatoes, Wana answered immediately, and cheese. The fridge was stocked with high-end groceries. Clearly, Catalina had prepared for a long stay. Well, fine. At least it could be put to good use. When the omelet was sizzling in the pan and the chocolate milk was steaming in Wana's mug, Pablo peeked into the kitchen. All done, he said. His stuff's packed, loaded into the taxi. He's about to leave. Want to say goodbye? Francisca hesitated, then shook her head. No. Everything's already been said. What about me? Wana suddenly spoke up. All the adults turned to her. You want to say goodbye? Francisca asked. Wana nodded, slipped off the stool, and left the kitchen. Francisca started to follow, but Pablo gently stopped her with a hand on her arm. Let her go. She has the right. The hallway was quiet. Francisca strained to listen, but there were no shouts, no crying. A minute later, Wana returned, climbed back onto her stool, and picked up her mug. Did you say what you needed to? Francisca asked. Wana nodded as she sipped her milk, leaving a chocolate mustache on her upper lip. Can I ask what you said? Francisca asked gently. Wana looked at her seriously. I said he was good, but weak. And that a real dad would never let anyone hurt me. Not even a mom. Not even a grandma. Francisca gasped softly and pulled her daughter into a hug, kissing the top of her head. You're the smartest girl I know, she whispered. The absolute smartest. The front door slammed shut, cutting off the past like a guillotine. Francisca listened to the fading footsteps on the stairs but felt nothing, no relief, no sorrow. Only emptiness and exhaustion. The baby stirred in her belly, reminding her of its presence. So, sis, Pablo leaned in the doorway. Where do we start the repairs? Francisca looked around the apartment, no longer hers, reshaped by Catalina's tastes. A cot in the hallway. A baby room filled with things she hadn't chosen. There was so much to fix, but she had no strength left. She sat down, placing a hand on her belly. First we get rid of that cot, she said quietly. Wana needs a proper bed. All right, Pablo clapped his hands. Gregorio, Felipe, give us a hand. His quiet, efficient friends began folding the cot. Pablo, meanwhile, went to the former nursery. Yeah, they heard him say. Plenty to do here. We'll move this new furniture into my garage for now. Then we'll head to the store and get Wana a new bed and everything she needs. I don't have much money left, Francisca admitted. I've been on sick leave for 3 weeks. Oh, come on, sis, Pablo cut her off. What are brothers for? We don't leave our own behind. Wana, finishing her milk, suddenly looked up. Is Uncle Pablo really my uncle? Like, really real? Francisca smiled and stroked her daughter's hair. The realist. We're from the same orphanage. We were separated as kids and spent years looking for each other. Exactly, Pablo said, winking as he returned to the kitchen. I'm your legit uncle, and my kids are your cousins. They've been begging to visit you. how about a picnic this weekend? I won't have a room to host them, Wana said quietly, lowering her eyes. You will, Pablo promised firmly. We'll make it happen today. He turned to Francisca. You want to come with us to pick everything out, or would you rather rest? You don't look too good. After the hospital and everything that had happened, Francisca truly felt drained. Too much had happened in one day, too many emotions, too much trauma. Her temples throbbed, and her back ached like someone had driven a blunt knife into it. I think I'll stay, she admitted. I'll make a list of what to get. I'll go. Wana volunteered immediately. I want to choose the bed and curtains and bookshelves. Can I, Mom? Of course, Francisca smiled. Just listen to Pablo. And don't ask for the most expensive stuff, Wana said with a mischievous squint. On the contrary, Francisca cupped her daughter's cheek. Ask for anything you want. Today is special. The day our family became stronger. Without a dad? Wana asked seriously. Francisca took a deep breath. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that sometimes a family becomes stronger when the people hurting it finally leave? There are all kinds of dads, she said slowly. Your first dad, Tomas, loved you with all his heart. That's why we were so happy together. But he didn't leave by choice. Luis, he's a good man too, but he's weak. He couldn't protect us when it mattered. Does that make him a bad dad? It makes him the wrong dad for us, Francisca said carefully. You see, a family is like a fortress. Everyone has to protect each other. And if someone can't do that, the fortress crumbles. Wana thought for a moment, then nodded. Like in the story about the 3 little pigs. 2 of them built houses of straw and sticks, and the wolf blew them down. But the third one built his house of bricks, and saved everyone. Francisca smiled. Exactly. And you know what? I think you and I are going to build the strongest house in the world. Because we'll never let anyone hurt each other again. Not even the baby, Wana said, placing a hand on her mother's belly. We'll protect him too. We will, Francisca nodded. When Pablo and his friends took Wana to the furniture store, Francisca was finally able to exhale. She walked through the apartment slowly, taking stock of all the changes that needed to be undone. Every room bore Catalina's mark, new curtains, rearranged furniture, strange trinkets. It felt like someone had tried to erase her and Wana's life bit by bit, replacing it with their own vision of how things should be. In the kitchen cabinets she found new dinner sets, crystal glasses, expensive teacups. The bathroom overflowed with bottles, lotions, shampoos, cosmetics. In the hallway closet, bags of children's clothes that clearly weren't meant for Wana. Francisca methodically packed everything into large bags. Later she'd decide what to do, throw it out, donate it, maybe sell it. But the biggest shock came when she entered the former nursery. Now repurposed for the unborn baby, it had sky blue walls, white furniture, lace curtains, and no soul. In her pursuit of cleanliness and perfection, Catalina had created a sterile, lifeless space. It felt more like a hospital room than a place for a child to dream. I won't tear it all down right away, Francisca decided. Let Wana choose what she likes. This will be her room. Just hers. The doorbell rang. Francisca tensed. Could it be Luis coming back? Or worse, Catalina? She cautiously approached the door and looked through the peephole. Standing on the doorstep was her neighbor, Rafaela. Francisca, Rafaela exclaimed the moment the door opened, I saw everything. Those strong guys, the way they carried out the stuff, how he was taken away. What happened? Are you okay? Francisca gave a tired smile. Her neighbor's curiosity often bordered on unhealthy interest in other people's lives, but behind it was always genuine concern. Everything's fine, Rafaela. Luis and I separated. It's for the best. Oh, dear God, Rafaela threw up her hands. And the baby? You're due any day now. I'll manage, Francisca said firmly. I have my brother, friends, and Wana, she's my biggest helper. Rafaela shook her head. It's that mother-in-law. I always felt something was off about her. Too sweet to be real. Always talking about the grandchild, about traditions. You know what she told me when they were taking the furniture? That you gave permission because everything was old and you didn't care. But I remember how you and Wana picked out that crib. And the little wardrobe. You went through every catalog to choose the best for your daughter. Francisca sighed. Indeed, she had combed through dozens of catalogs, saved money for quality furniture for growing Wana, because she wanted her daughter to have everything she herself had lacked in childhood. A real bed instead of a cold institutional cot. A nice wardrobe instead of a shared, ugly numbered locker. We'll buy new furniture, she said. Better than before. Of course, the neighbor nodded. You know, I actually saved something. She darted into her apartment and returned holding a battered plush rabbit. Fluffy. Francisca gasped, grabbing the toy. Where, how? I was taking out the trash, Rafaela explained, and saw your mother-in-law digging in the dumpster. She stuffed a whole bag of toys and books in there, and she threw this rabbit in with special spite. And I thought, maybe this means something to someone. So I took him, washed and dried him. I was waiting to give it back once she was gone. Francisca pressed the toy to her chest. Old, worn, with fur missing in places, Fluffy was a priceless treasure for Wana. The last gift from her real father. Thank you, she whispered, tears rising to her throat. You have no idea what this means to Wana. I do, dear, Rafaela sighed. I had a hard childhood too. My father died on the front. All I had left of him was a photo. I still carry it everywhere. After the neighbor left, Francisca took Fluffy to the bathroom, thoroughly washed him with shampoo, rinsed and wrung him out, and left him to dry on the radiator. He needed to be dry by the time Wana returned. But as she was finishing, another wave of pain gripped her lower back, sharp and pulling. Francisca gasped, clutching the edge of the sink. Her breath caught. Her belly tightened and then relaxed. Not now, please, she pleaded. It's too early, baby. Just wait a little longer. She barely made it to the bed, lay down, and rested her hand on her belly. The pain slowly subsided. False labor, the doctor had said. In the final weeks of pregnancy, the uterus trains for real labor. Nothing to panic about. But it was still frightening. The thought that she was now alone, without her husband's support, made her heart ache. Yes, Pablo was there, he wouldn't abandon her. But giving birth alone, raising 2 kids alone, it wouldn't be easy. I'll manage, Francisca told herself firmly. I've been through worse. And the most important thing is, I'll make my own decisions now, for myself and my children, without deferring to someone else's will or interests. By the time Pablo, his friends, and a delighted Wana returned, Francisca was already feeling better. She smiled as she watched them unload the car, boxes of furniture, bags of textiles, toys, books. Wana pulled out each item, excitedly chattering about everything. Mommy, look, this is my new bed. It's pink with a canopy, like a princess's. And here are my bookshelves, they're pink and white. And these are butterfly curtains. And we got the exact same rug like before, remember? With the roads for toy cars. Pablo's friends quickly and skillfully assembled the furniture. The old blue wallpaper was left for now, there wasn't time, and the smell of fresh paint wasn't good for Francisca anyway. But the pink curtains, the bright bedspread, the new moon-shaped nightlight completely transformed the room. And when the bed was made, piled high with toys, Francisca brought in the now dry Fluffy. I have a surprise for you, she told her daughter. Wana froze, not believing her eyes, then let out a cry and ran to her mother, hugging the toy tight. Fluffy, my Fluffy. Mommy, how did you find him? Rafaela saved him, Francisca explained. She saw Grandma throwing out your toys and took him. Wana dashed to the door. I'm going to thank her. Right now. Wait, sweetheart, Francisca stopped her. It's late. She might be sleeping. We'll go together tomorrow, bring her flowers and chocolates. Wana nodded, still clutching the rabbit, then suddenly grew serious. You know, Mom, I pretended Fluffy was on a journey. That he went to collect toys for my little brother. I really believed that, so I wouldn't cry. Francisca hugged her daughter, a lump rising in her throat. You're the strongest girl in the world, she whispered. And the kindest. It was almost 11 by the time the last nail was hammered and the final dish washed. Tired but happy, Wana fell asleep in her new bed, clutching Fluffy. Pablo's friends had left everything in perfect order, and Pablo himself sat in the kitchen with Francisca, sipping coffee. Hey, sis, he said, staring into his mug. I've been thinking, you could move in with us for a while. You're due soon. It'll be hard being alone. Francisca shook her head. Thanks, Pablo, but no. You've got your hands full already, 3 kids, you and Rose. Where would we fit? We'd make it work, he grumbled. Still, giving birth alone. I'll manage, Francisca said confidently. Besides, we agreed, when labor starts, I call you, and you come. Rose will take Wana so she's looked after. Pablo sighed. All right, your call. But I'll be checking in every day. And if anything happens, anything, you call me, day or night. They sat a little longer, reminiscing about their childhood in the orphanage, mutual acquaintances, and their first meetings after many years apart. Then Pablo left, and Francisca went to bed. For the first time in a long while, she slept soundly. No pain, no restless awakenings. The baby slept peacefully inside her, gently kicking now and then. At dawn, Francisca woke to find Wana had quietly slipped into her room and climbed into bed with her. Good morning, sunshine, Francisca smiled, hugging her daughter. How did you sleep in your new bed? Good, Wana snuggled close, but I still want to be with you. Can I? Of course, Francisca kissed the top of her head. Let's lie here a bit longer, and then we'll get up and make a nice breakfast. How about pancakes? With jam and sour cream. Wana replied instantly. They lazed a while longer, whispering about their plans for the day, going grocery shopping, visiting Rafaela, taking a walk in the park if the weather was good. Then Francisca felt a sudden tension inside. This time, the pain was stronger than the day before. Her belly turned rock hard, then a sharp shot of pain struck her lower back. Mommy? Wana asked, frightened by the change in her mother. Are you okay? Francisca tried to smile, but it came out a grimace. It's all right, sweetheart. I think your little brother decided it's time to come into the world. I need to call Pablo. The next few hours were a blur of pain, rushing, and worry. Pablo arrived in 20 minutes, called an ambulance, sent Wana with his wife. Then came the hospital, the admissions room, exams, IVs. 4 centimeters dilation, the midwife said. It's just the beginning. It'll take a while. Francisca endured. She recalled the breathing techniques from prenatal classes, paced the room when she was allowed, and tried to distract herself thinking of Wana, of the future, of life with 2 children. By evening, the contractions became unbearable. She could neither walk nor lie still. It felt like the pain would tear her apart, but deep down she knew this was the right pain. The path to a new life, to meeting her son. 10 centimeters, the midwife finally said after another check. It's time to push. The delivery room, the bright lights, the doctor's commands. Francisca pushed with all her might, feeling the baby moving through the birth canal. A little more, just a bit. We can see the head, the doctor encouraged. Push on 3, 1, 2, 3. And at last, sudden relief, and emptiness inside. Then the first cry, loud, indignant, alive. Her son. Her boy. A strong one, said the midwife, placing the tiny body on Francisca's chest. 3,800 grams. Excellent weight. Francisca looked at his wrinkled red face, tiny fingers, damp dark hair, and felt a warm wave of love wash over her, just like when she first held Wana. "Hello, baby," she whispered. "Welcome to our family." Pablo came the next day with flowers, fruit, and all the necessities. But most importantly, with a video call to Wana, who leaned eagerly toward the screen. "Mommy, show me my brother. I want to see him." Francisca gently turned the phone to show her son, sleeping peacefully in her arms, wrapped in a swaddle. "He's so tiny," Wana whispered, "and so beautiful." "What's his name?" "I wanted you to help me choose a name," said Francisca. "I have a few options." "No," Wana said firmly. "I know what his name is. Tomas. Like my dad." Francisca froze. That name hadn't occurred to her, but now it sounded so natural, so right. "You don't mind?" she asked. "No," Wana shook her head. "Dad would have wanted that. And Fluffy too." "Then it's settled," Francisca smiled. Tomas. A week later, they came home, mother and son. Wana met them at the entrance with a bouquet of wildflowers picked in the park. In the apartment, a surprise was waiting, a huge banner painted by Wana that read, "Welcome, Tomas." The first days were chaotic. Francisca was torn between feedings, changing diapers, soothing the baby, and wanting to spend time with Wana. But her daughter turned out to be surprisingly independent and understanding. She made her own sandwiches when her mother was busy with the baby, brought diapers and blankets, and endlessly cooed over her little brother, telling him stories and showing him toys. The weekend came, and Pablo arrived with his family. His wife, Rose, a plump, warm-skinned woman with kind eyes, immediately took charge of cooking. Their kids, 2 girls close in age and a younger boy, ran off with Wana to play. Pablo picked up his newborn nephew and studied him for a long time, squinting. "Strong," he finally pronounced. "Takes after Grandpa." "What Grandpa?" Francisca raised an eyebrow. "We don't know either your parents or mine." "Our collective one," Pablo grinned. "Remember Lamberto, the caretaker at the orphanage? He was like a father to all of us. Same strong chin and serious eyes." Francisca smiled. Funny, but she really did remember that caretaker, a quiet older man who never yelled or punished but somehow taught the boys discipline and responsibility. He died of a heart attack when Francisca was 13, and by then Pablo had already been transferred to another orphanage in a neighboring province. That's when they were separated for many years. "You know," she said, watching Wana and the cousins running around the courtyard behind the apartment building, "I think we finally found them. Our family." "Absolutely," Pablo nodded, gently rocking the sleeping infant. "And now they're stuck with us. The kids, and us with each other." After lunch, Rose stayed with the baby, and Francisca went for a walk with Wana and the nieces and nephew. They walked to the nearest park, where the kids immediately took over the swings and merry-go-round. Francisca sat down on a bench, watching them play. A warm May day, sunshine, laughter. For once, there was nothing to worry about, no betrayal, no cruelty, no anxiety about tomorrow.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.